Namaskar, Nileshok. This would be part 2 of the moon, the sun, and the comet evidence of the 18 days of the Mahabharata war. And this is part 2 because in part 1, I actually went up to day 12 and I had started talking of the day 13th, and then I had some technical issue. So that video had to be stopped there. What I am going to do in this video is for the sake of continuity and a smooth narration, I'm going to begin with uh, day number 10. So there is going to be some overlap, but that's a welcome overlap because it happened and we cannot do much about it. But the second reason is, and I don't remember what I said for day 10, 11, 12, and just the beginning of day 13th when I had to stop. So you may say, you will see how additional things can be said for the same data. I am not going to say this for the sake of it. So actually I may run fast through day 10, 11, 12, and 13 or 12, but that's my point. Okay, so let's jump into the presentation and we will begin with day 10. All right. So some of it is naturally overlap, and that's okay. That's actually welcome. At least it is okay, and it is more than welcome for a true researcher. Some of you may be bored to listen to the same stuff for the second time. Well, maybe you are not into research. Okay. All right. Day 10. The first piece of evidence. Just to quickly recap, the first 5 days, the fighting stopped at the sunset. Beginning day 6, 7, 8, and 9, progressively the fighting continued beyond sunset for a longer duration every day. The first appearance, the first description of the moon since the war began occurs on the 8th day of the war. Until then, there is not even a description of the moon anywhere. And then fast forward to day 10, which is where we have the first appearance of the word related to the full moon. Okay, that kind of description into this war narrative. Okay, so the first description of the full moon like moon, appears on the 10th day of the war. So that's where we begin. Also, there is a mention of a Rahu. We will see why that is so. So now, the very fact there is a mention of a full moon, which means we are approaching the Purnima day, and the Purnima and the Amavasya are the points of Rahu as far as the Mahabharata and Ramayana is concerned. The nodes of the moon are always described as a Rahu and never, I repeat, never as Ketu. Granted, there are other words like Swarabhanu and stuff like that referred to in referring to Rahu or eclipse like condition, but never the word Ketu, either in Ramayana or Mahabharata, as it relates to the node of the moon or the eclipse. See, these are extremely nitty gritty details, but I have to mention it because some jackass will pop up, jump up, and say, well, you said there is no Ketu. No, I did not say that. I said Ketu does not occur in the sense of the node of the moon in the Ramayana and Mahabharata. Of course, Ketu occurs as in, say, Dhuma Ketu that we saw in the part 1. Dhuma Ketu, as it what? A smoky flag. Ketu occurs in the sense of a flag. So every warrior, charioteer, okay, has a flag on their chariot, and that is referred to as a Ketu many times. So the word Ketu exists. It comes in the sense of a flag. It may even come in the sense of some other phenomenon, such as one simple one is a Dhuma Ketu, like a comet, but not in the sense of a node of the moon in either Ramayana or Mahabharata. This is very interesting and this is very relevant. Okay, this is I'm doing this for the benefit of researchers. Just go to, say, Gita Press translation or anybody's translation, doesn't matter. Most of the other translations, many of the English translations, especially the recent ones, are basically copycat. They have not used their own brain, especially when it comes to critical empirical evidence such as astronomy or non-astronomy but scientific evidence. So what they have done, they have essentially looked at the old text, and not to be completely blamed for that. I mean, they can start with those, but where is their originality? So they have absolutely, without any care or without use of any additional knowledge, simply copied and translated. So for example, many translations where there is no reason, no rational, okay, not even an allusion to the node of the moon, many translators take, for example, Gita Press translation, some casual words like a Shveto, Shamo, just a Graha, no specific Graha is mentioned. And the translators have immediately jumped and tried to translate those words as like a Ketu. Why? Because since the definition is generic anyways, like a Shamo or Shveto or just a Graha, so why not? Well, if they would have understood astronomy, they would not have made that blunder in translating the shlok, particular reference. Why? Because if you understand the timing of Mahabharata is that of a Margashirsha, so you can simply take it safely as a Kartika, because Kartika full moon is already described before the Mahabharata war, and then there is an upper limit of Chaitra Purnima, before which all the events related to Mahabharata, including the Bhishma Nirvana, the passing away of Bhishma, must occur. Keep that in mind. So Kartik Purnima on one side and Chaitra Purnima on the other side are the upper and lower limits on the lunar months, lunar Purnimas, within which all of these events must occur. There has to be a minimum time period of 95 days between the 10th day of the war and the day of winter solstice, and after that there can be the Chaitra Purnima. So there are enough of these restraints, and that itself, like, please read my Bhishma Nirvana, read it multiple times until cows come home, until the point comes home that the Kartik Amavasya is such a beautifully constrained and defined by the internal Mahabharata evidence as the first day of Mahabharata war. In fact, all that evidence I am giving you right now in support of that Kartik Amavasya as the first day of the Mahabharata war, guess what? This is a bonus. This is all additional bonus. Okay. So Rahu is the word that is used for the node of the moon, either ascending or descending node. It doesn't matter as far as Mahabharata and Ramayana is concerned. Anyways, and so there is a reference to that Rahu, but also Purne Nishakaram. Nishakaram means moon. And so the first full moon reference occurs on the 10th day of the war. And because I have covered this in the previous part, I will not repeat, but just a brief mention. There are atrociously idiotic Mahabharata researchers who neither understand Mahabharata text, nor don't understand Sanskrit, don't understand astronomy, don't have a sense of scientific acumen, do not have logical reasoning skills, do not know how to use Tantra Yukti. And the foolishness doesn't stop here. As Santa Ramdas Swami says, okay, so basically, अक्षरे गाळूनी वाची काते घाली पदरीची निघा न करी पुस्तकाची तो एक मूर्ख. In very much this definition fashion, they do the foolishness, which is to say, some of my statements they will deliberately misconstrue. Other times they deliberately put their stupid interpretations in my mouth and try to say this is what I'm saying. The one that I am going to show you, I will show you for the 11th day, falls into this. But for the 10th day, for example, they claim that as if, I never say that, but as if I am saying there is a full moon day, Purnima day, right from day 10, and that's also true on 11th and 12th and 13th and 14th and 15th and 16th, 17th, 18th, and they don't even stop there. They think I'm also saying on the 19th day, it's all full moon day. How stupid and idiotic. So what am I saying? In fact, I am not saying anything. I am simply reading the internal references of Mahabharata and with Vijnana Buddhi, Khagola Shastra, Tantra Yukti, and Tarka Shastra, making the sense out of them. And this is it. The illumination of the moon, beginning with, say, sometime around Shukla Paksha Dashami, Naomi Dashami, somewhere there, all the way to the full moon day, and few days after, just the way it is described in Mahabharata. Think of this as like a day 14, 15 as the Purnima day together, because Purnima kind of seen at night in that sense, and around that plus minus 4 days. So think of plus minus 4, that's 8 days plus these 2 days. So 8, 9, 10. 10 days surrounding the full moon day with the full moon day in the center. This is the time when the illumination of the moon as seen from the earth is such that for most part it is above 75%. And to a typical view, the moon looks like as if a full moon. No one other than these Mahabharata researcher trolls, no one is saying it is a full moon in the sense of the moon of Purnima, but it is a full moon like moon. Okay, so this is one stupidity I wanted to bring it out. I will mention the second one, which I did say that in the previous part as well. Okay, so we are on the day 10. This is why the reference to the full moon like moon, because there is more than 75% illumination. Okay, let's go to the next reference. This one I already discussed, the moon rising with pointed ends down. This decisively falsify anyone claiming the first day of the Mahabharata war to be say Margashirsha Shukla Dashami, Ekadashi, Dwadashi, Trayodashi, Chaturdashi, Purnima. Because if those are any of the 5 days, then the 10th day cannot be the day in the Shukla Paksha, especially with the pointed ends down and the rising of the moon. It's just simply not possible. So this reference decisively falsifies such beginnings, such as Margashirsha Shukla, or just forget Margashirsha for a minute, Shukla Dashmi, Ekadashi, Dwadashi, Trayodashi, Chaturdashi, Purnima. Again, I will repeat, an individual piece of evidence in most cases by itself may not able to bring a revolution. Of course, there are exceptions like Arundhati Vasishta, but all of these together, okay, paint a wonderful picture, wonderful evidence for us about the one of the critical, if not the significant war of last 10,000 years for entire humanity, and that's the Mahabharata war. Okay, so this one says that the 10th day was the day of a Shukla Paksha, where moon rose with pointed ends down, and that decisively falsifies the first day of war to be any day between, say, Shukla, Dashmi, Ekadashi, Dwadashi, Trayodashi, Chaturdashi, and Purnima. All right, let's go to the 11th day. Okay, the beautiful description of the moon, and I have said it before, but I will say it again. It's worth repeating. Again, this atrocious nonsense of Mahabharata researcher pops up. अक्षरे गाळूनी वाची काते घाली पदरीची निघान करी पुस्तकाची तो एक मूर्ख. This foolishness, okay, attains its splendor. And so one Mahabharata researcher takes this reference, misunderstands the translation of it. He sees the word Chitre Rathe Pandusuto Babase or Nakshatra Chitre Viyati Vachandra and foolishly thinks that that is like a full moon near Nakshatra Chitra. Now, does he believe that that is the case? No. Okay, he does a foolish translation of his own. Then he puts those words in my mouth and claims that I am saying there was also a Purnima day near Chitra during the time of the Mahabharata war. Just trying to bring up, you see, these are the people, they will use the titles shamelessly, okay, whatever the degrees or accolades that they want to use, and then do utter nonsense to confuse the people, confuse the masses, and I do not see what is the rationale behind it. Okay, so these are basically the enemies. These are enemies in the sense of the 16th chapter. We talk about the Daivi Pravrutti and Asuri Pravrutti. This is a Asuri Pravrutti. This needs to be called out. Therefore, I am doing this. Okay, and I will leave it to you as a homework as to who these foolish people are. Okay, so this is the 11th day. Now let's go to the 12th day. 12th day, the full moon like moon near Kritika. Again, I have covered this in the first part, so I won't spend more time. Here, this is the first instance of not only the phase of the moon is mentioned, which is like full moon, but actually the position of that full moon like moon is mentioned by saying Krittika Yoga Yuktena Paurnamasyam Evenduna. So the full moon like moon was near Nakshatra Kritika. If you go in your simulation or astronomy mathematical calculation for the 12th day, 27 October 5561 BCE, you are going to find a full moon like moon with the illumination in the range of say 80% and the position of that moon near Kritika. Now this allows us to again validate additional evidence that this was indeed the lunar month of Margashirsha and so on. Okay, and of course the first day being the Kartika Masya. Okay, second piece of evidence for the 12th day, full moon like moon. Okay, now keep this in mind. This trend of full moon like moon has began on the 10th day. It continued 11th, 12th, and right now we are in the 13th day. Again, Sampurna Chandra Bhamukham. Okay, so full moon like moon and as if eclipsed. Okay, so that reference is again you have the Purna Chandra Vadanam Kakapakshvrtakshakam. But before that, that line Upaplutam Yatha Somam Sashushkam Ivasagaram, as if the moon had eclipsed. That is the translation of it. Okay, and lo and behold, if you do the mathematical calculations or astronomy simulations, you will find that the actual mathematical position of Rahu, or just simply say node, okay, where the moon's orbit cuts the ecliptic on this day, 28th October, was very near to the position of the full moon like moon, and that is what is beautifully given in this particular shlok for the 13th day of the Mahabharata war. And the description is as if the moon was eclipsed. Well, there was no eclipse really. The eclipse won't happen on the 13th day of the war, but the actual position of the node Rahu, the mathematical position, was indeed very near to the moon on this day. I'll just take a small digression and say that as far as the eclipses are concerned, actually it is not just the one mathematical point, but almost the region, surrounding that mathematical point where the actual eclipses can take place. Okay. Therefore, once the eclipse begin, usually it is a potential time period for anywhere from 1 to 3 eclipses. Okay, and you can just go back and empirically check that for past 20-30 years of data and go and see and find out and validate, verify for yourself that that is the case. Okay, anyways, and that's what I mean by giving you some of these additional insights as we go through this wonderful evidence. Okay, day 13th, the second piece of evidence, full moon like moon. The numbering might be wrong, guys, here. Okay, yeah, so 13.1, this is that Upaplutam, as if eclipsed, the lunar eclipse, and the lunar eclipse is indeed coming in 2 days. Okay, and then 13th, day 13th, second piece of evidence, full moon like moon. So notice that Purna Chandrena Nakshatra Ganamalini. And where did it begin? It began on the 10th day, where the nakshatra number 25 is listed. And notice why all these moons are described as full moon like moon. Very obvious astronomy 101. That is not to be confused with the stupid ramblings of other Mahabharata dating researchers who unnecessarily create confusion by putting words in my mouth saying I am saying there is a full moon going through 10 days of the second part of the Mahabharata war. That's utter nonsense. Okay, let's move on. Day 14th. Okay, the first piece of evidence. This day, their 7 planets are described as attacking the moon. I have covered this simulation in the planetary evidence. Like 7 Kaurava brothers started attacking the Bhima, and this Vyasadeva describes that 7 planets attacking the moon. And actually on this day, 14th day, you can see the 7 planets lined up in the sky, and on the one side is the bright full moon. Okay, the 14th day, 15th day are the days of the full moon. So this gets validated. Okay, but I don't have a simulation here because I have already covered this under planetary descriptions. Okay, day 15. This is the day of a full moon. Actually, this is the day there was a occurrence of a eclipse. Okay. Now, keep in mind the actual mathematical node was near the 13th day. You know where the moon's position was on the 13th day. Now, actual eclipse is happening on 15th day because remember what I said. The actual area region of eclipses is from the mathematical node plus minus few degrees on both sides. Okay, actual lunar eclipse happened on the 15th day of the Mahabharata war, and it was visible for say about 90 minutes at the time of the sunset. Okay, what kind of eclipse, where exactly would be seen, these are the tough calculations to do, and that has to do with a very difficult to predict position of the moon. We call that delta t correction and few additional things, so we'll not go into that. But what simulation will show you that there indeed was an eclipse, and it could be visible from Kurukshetra for up to 90 minutes just before the sunset. And actually the eclipse continued for some more time, but that's besides the point. So yes, there is a mention of a Rahu and eclipse condition. Here you can see the reference Swarabhanu Riva Bhaskaram. So anytime, whether a lunar or a solar eclipse, the context is made with respect to either simply eclipse as in the sense of a Grahan, as in the sense of Swarabhanu in the sense of a Rahu, or simply Rahu, never a Ketu. Alright. 15th day, second reference, darkness due to the dust at night. This is very interesting. Again, many Mahabharata dating researchers, because of the lack of the various things that I mentioned, have created atrocious nonsense and foolishness out of this. I am calling this day 15th, but frankly, what is happening, and this was one unique day in the 18 days of the war, that the war continued practically through the rest of the night. Now, this is not a surprise if you look at all the evidence. Remember, first 5 days, war stopping at the fighting stopping at the sunset. Then beginning 6 days, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10th was a possible exception because Bhishma fell in the battle that day. So war stopped with that. But 6, 7, 8, 9, and again if you continue from 11th and a 12th and a 13th and a 14th, so this is the 14th night, which is the full moon day night, the true full moon, the Purnima, and the war, the fighting continued through the night. So I'm calling it day 15, but actually it is the night at the end of the day 14th. Okay. And so here what happened is the darkness due to the dust at night, and you see many descriptions in that. For example, there it says Vartamane tatha yuddhe ghora rupe bhayavahe tamasa samvrute loke rajasa cha mahipate. All these warriors fighting and so much dust getting into the air. Okay, it was happening even during the daytime as we saw on the first day, and you can see that again on the 15th daytime too. The dust itself was so much that it darkened the sun, it created darkness, the fighting had to either stop or people were just fighting with the guesswork. And I will encourage all of you to read these descriptions in the original text of Mahabharata. So it is there. But here during the night, just the beginning of a night at the end of the 14th day, there is this description that the dust basically created darkness. Okay, so that's that. Then it continued beyond midnight. I will not tell you all the instances. Ghatotkacha was killed by Karna around midnight. Again the war continued, and this is when these descriptions come, by the way, where the darkness was caused due to the dust at night, because otherwise it's a full moon day. By the way, there are many other folks who simply have never experienced a true full moon night, okay, away from a light pollution. So they have either no idea or a very faulty idea that it's a full moon night, so everything is so visible like a daytime. That is simply not true. I was lucky to have experienced many full moon nights in my life in a very village setting. So of course it's a beautiful day, I mean beautiful night. You can walk through and so on and so forth. But it's not like if you don't know the road you can walk without the light or without the torch. That's just simply not true. And it's not like you can sit in the full moon night and read a book. Let no one give you that false impression. But it is pretty bright. It's a beautiful setup. So naturally the torches would be required. That's not a surprise. Okay, so now when the dust comes, they they decide to rest until the dust settles and the moon becomes visible again. And that reference is here, especially focus on reference number 25, where it says tato vinidra vishrantas chandramasya udite punah. And then I don't have to read the next one. And then samsadayisha dhanyonya swargaya kuru pandava. So tato vinidra. So take a rest until then, until chandramas udite puna. Until udite means people see just like rising or sunrise, rise in the sense the first appearance. Not always so. If you go and look at the word udita means becoming visible, rising, and so on. So Chandramas udite puna means when the moon becomes visible again, then you start fighting, this dharma yuddha, and fight and attain swarga, swargaya kuru pandava. That's what it is being said. That is the message given by Arjun. Now this verse number 25 is taken by people to mean this was not the full moon day and the moon was going to rise very late into the night, almost like a early morning. Okay, that's how people have misunderstood this. But again, just by one reference, if somebody misunderstands, that is understandable. But the way we have continued through the reference from the first day of the war, it beautifully paints us a picture of the war beginning on Amavasya and continuing with the different phases of the moon leading to this full moon. Okay, all right. Now reappearance of the bright moon, then there is a description that the moon became visible again, the dust settled because nobody is fighting for some time. Tatah kumudanathena kamini ganda panduna netranandena chandrena mahendri digalankrita. Now here also the word Mahendri, that Mahendra referring to Indra, and Indra is the Swami of east direction. Therefore this has been translated by many translators. I would not say that's a wrong translation, but in the context it is indeed erroneous translation. The Mahendra in the sense of east direction. And again these foolish Mahabharata researchers just harp on this one word and say, look, the moon rose in the east direction. Well, if you understand that there is additional reference just after this chapter that one should read after chapter 184 in Gita Press or critical edition after 159. This says hardly the Tribhaga Shesha, the 1/3 has remaining of the Muhurtas, which is to say about about 150 minutes, just shy of it. So that's what, 2.5 hours approximately was remaining. And if you see that this is the timing when now the east direction is brightening because the sun is going to come up. Okay, so that is one aspect. Second aspect is that once the moon became visible, in just a description it is said, look, the moon was seen up in the sky. The Mahendri also is used in the sense of a mountain or up, because Indra is up there, up in the mountain or up there the moon came. In that sense also, Netra Nandena Chandrena Mahendri Digalang Kruta, Digalang in the dik, that is in the sky. In that sense also it can be used. Some people have literally translated to mean Mahendri. I would not say I would blame them. But if you look at the entire context, if you just look at the one verse, I would not blame them. If you look at the entire context, then that is actually a wrong translation of it. It should refer to the full moon becoming visible up in the sky, and that is to be how it should be understood. Okay, let's look at the next one. And those Mahabharata researchers who are claiming a late night, very late night, I mean more like a 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning moon rising, essentially they are referring to what? They are referring to the Krishna Paksha and the Tithi of a Dwadashi, Trayodashi, Chaturdashi, something like this. The moon moon's illumination is more like what? More like a Dvitiya and a Tritiya kind of thing. Shukla Paksha Dvitiya Tritiya equivalent. Like a 5% and 10% and 12%, not more than that. It's hardly any illumination. But on the other hand, if that was so, you would not see the kind of description I'm going to show you right now. Okay, so once that bright moon was up in the sky, Mahendri Digalankrita, what happens? Dashashataksha कुब्दरी निःसृत किरणकेसर भासुर पिंजर तिमिर वारण युथ विदारण समुदिया उदयाचल केसरी. These are the descriptions, and if you have some poetic sense, you would realize these are the beautiful descriptions of a moon or a full moon. But we don't have to take a guess. We already have seen immense evidence for a full moon like moon beginning with 10th day. It has not stopped, and let me tell you, let me promise you, it's not going to stop on the 15th day either. But actually it continues to the 15th day. Bright full moon like the moon, like how bright? Like a white Nandi of Mahadeva. Those are the description. Hara Vrushottama Gatra Samudyati Smara Sharasana Purna Samaprabha Navavadhusmita Charu Manohara Pravisruta Kumudakara Bandava Smara Sharasana Purna Samaprabha. Okay, completely brightened. Okay, Purna Samaprabha. That is how this moon is. And how does it look like? Like the Nandi of a Mahadeva. And just the beautiful smile of a new bride, and so on and so forth. Okay, and is bringing joy to everyone. Basically brightening all the directions. That's the description. Okay, and the moon brightened the battlefield like a daylight. Those are the descriptions. This is impossible by a moon with its crescent moon, very low illumination, anytime into the Krishna Paksha of a Dwadashi, Trayodashi, Chaturdashi, and Amavasya of course won't do it. Look at the descriptions. Tato Muhurtat Bhagavan Purastat Kshalakshana Arunam Darshayamasa Grasat Jyoti Prabham Prabhu. Okay, it's just the bright light came there, the rays and everything. Arunasyatu Tasyanu Jatarupa Samaprabham. Again, Samaprabha, everywhere it was all bright. Rashmi Jalam Jalam Mahaschandro Mandam Mandamavasrujata Mandavasrujata. Forgive me. So slowly it suddenly became all bright. Okay, and Utsaryanta Prabhaya Tamaste Chandra Rashmaya, all the darkness was completely gone. Okay, and from one corner to the another, one end of the sky to the other, it was all bright and nice. These are the descriptions of the full moon. Okay, and it of course the brightened the battlefield. I thought this was a repetition. No, it's not repetition. I'm not bothering reading it. You can pause the video and read some of the thing. Aprakhyam prakasham cha jagamashu tamastada. All the darkness is gone. It's all bright. Prati prakashite loke diva bhute nishakare. Okay, all of this. And then look at the last line. The bodhyamanam tu tatsainyam rajan Rajaschandrasya Rashmivi Bubudhe Shatapatranam. Just like you can say the lotuses, they brighten up and they open up by looking at the sun and the moon, kind of the light. Just like that, all the animals started moving and so on and so forth. Again, this is a description of a full moon night. Okay, effect of the moon on the warriors. Then the day ended with killing of Drona. Well, so you can read that translation. You can pause it and do what you need to do. Again, this is a beautiful description of a full moon night. And so night is over. Now the whole day there was a fighting going on. At the end of the day, towards the middle of the day or towards the second half of the day, Dronacharya is killed. I'll not go into that story. And that's the war stopped kind of with the sunset. That is the story for the 15th day. So beginning 6th day, progressively the war is lasting longer into the night. The exception being, for example, the 10th day because of the Bhishma. 11th day, it doesn't clearly state anything. Like Mahabharata, sufficient evidence is not there to tell us, so we don't know what happened. But other than that, we know there is a progressive war going on kind of every day. Okay, 13th day is another one when Abhimanyu fell down, and again therefore war stopped. Okay, but 14th night, like the war continued through the whole night. Okay, And 15 again, it stopped at the sunset because of the killing of a Drona. Let's look at what happens on the 16th and 17th. Keep this in mind. These are the days immediately after the full moon day, and this practically like a full moon day. And do we see the evidence of it? We absolutely do. 16th, first piece of evidence, full moon like moon, Purna Chandrarka Padmanam. Okay. 16th day, second piece of evidence, full moon like moon, Purna Chandra Bhavaktrani. Day 16th, third piece of evidence, full moon like moon. Where do we see? The last line there, Purna Chandra Nibhair Mahim. Okay. Day 16th, fourth piece of evidence, full moon between Vishakha. This is another interesting one. Okay, so what is it saying? Actually, some warrior or many warriors falling on the grounds, their heads, okay, uh, with their kundala, with their earrings, and what's on the ground, and Vasudeva is comparing that with what's up in the sky. And then he says, Shirascha Tatpurna Shashi Prabhananam, like a full moon like moon up there. And just imagine the two Vishakhas on the two sides of this moon. Vishakha yor madhyagata shashiyatha. Just like the two earrings on the side are those the stars of Vishakha, and the full moon in between. That's how the scene looked like. Now, if somebody takes a literal meaning of this, and initially as a prima facie, as a first approximation, that's fine. Somebody is saying, well, that's the nakshatra Vishakha. But hold on, just on the 12th day, there was a Kritika. On the first day, we know it was a Kartik Purnima, which means what? The sun has to be near Nakshatra, Jeshta, Mula, Purvashada, etc. We know it is the month of Margashirsha, so the sun's position is fixed. We cannot move that too much, other than 1 plus minus 1 nakshatra. So if you take this into account, so the position of the moon on the 16th day of the war cannot be near Vishakha. So what is this Vishakha refer to? So when I came across this, and I was doing Mahabharata dating first, so I said, what is Vishakha? Now again, this is when the Smruti, the background knowledge, the Agama knowledge becomes very important. What is that Agama knowledge? Is that these nakshatra and their yogataras, they are described in many different ways. Many different meaning, there are not many variations, but there are some variations. For example, take Punarvasu, the one nakshatra that is very important to us. It can be visualized, it has been visualized as the two stars of Gemini. Okay, the what is that? Castor and Pollux. But in Indian astronomy, of course, the Punarvasu is imagined as these two stars, Punarvasu, plural, but it's also imagined as two stars on the one side of the ecliptic, namely the two stars of Gemini, that is Castor and Pollux, and the other side, okay, you have, let's see, what do we have? Procyon and Gomesa, not Gomesa. Am I saying it right? Procyon, and there has to be one star there, okay? I think it's Gomesa, unless I'm saying a totally wrong name. Now, Procyon is basically the Canis Minor. Those of you who are beyond Astronomy 101, those who have passed Astronomy 201, okay? So you know what Canis Minor is. Canis Major is the Sirius, Canis Minor is Procyon. And next to that is a Gomesa. So those two stars on the south of the ecliptic, and Castor and Pollux on the north of the ecliptic, a combination of those four stars divided on the two sides of the ecliptic is also considered Punarvasu in the Indian astronomy. Okay, this is not something I'm making it up, guys. That's why you need a Agama knowledge. So because I knew it, I visualized, so maybe the Vishakha in the sense of Vishesha branches, it is referring to, by the way, and Kritika also has that similar meaning in it, so is Vishakha, and here we know that is also the meaning with a Punarvasu, because two star pair on one side, two star pair on the other side, and altogether four stars representing Punarvasu nakshatra. So imagine the full moon right along the ecliptic, and on one side you have the two stars, one kundala in one year, and the other side the Gomesa and Procyon, that's another one. So that's what I visualize, because that's exactly what the position should be, ought to be, near Punarvasu. Okay, so I said, hey, this Vishakha is referring to Punarvasu. I'm saying it again, and I want people to, if they don't agree to it, then give a better explanation. Now all the tails will go between the legs, okay, and there is a reason for it. Okay, but let's move on. The reason will come. The day 16, again the fifth piece of evidence, full moon like moon. Let's look for that word where it is, Purna Chandra Nibhani cha. Okay, and day 16, sixth piece of evidence, why there was no fighting through the night on the 16th night of the war. Remember, I said beginning 6th day, 6, 7, 8, and 9, progressively the fighting continued into the night. On the 10th day, it did not occur because Bhishma fell down in the battle. On the 11th day, we do not have clear descriptions, so we don't know one way or the other what happened if the fighting continued into the night. On the 12th day, I forgot now what happened there, I don't want to go back. Okay, on the 12th day, I don't remember what happened. On the 13th day, we do know that the fighting stopped with the sunset. The reason being Abhimanyu was killed, okay, and Pandavas stopped the fighting. On the 14th day, throughout the whole night, with the exception of an hour or two, the fighting continued, and that was the day of a full moon. Full moon night, not a surprise, not a surprise. On the 15th day, the fighting did stop at the sunset because Drona was killed. Now the question is, this day 16 and day 17 and 18 also, Ashwathama, fought through the Sautika Parva. When everyone was sleeping, he attacked. That is also a full moon like night, but so is 16 and so is 17. Now the question is, there are no descriptions, just like 11th, of fighting continued into the night on 16th day. Okay, and so this was a curiosity of mine, and as I was reading through it, and somebody should go and read the descriptions for the 11th day to see if one can find a good reason why, if the fighting continued into the night, or if it did not, and if it did not, why not. But Mahabharata gives us a reason why the fighting did not continue into the night on the 16th day of the war. Remember, it is a day very close to the full moon, and ideally it should have continued if we have to go by the trend and the norm, what we saw beginning with the 6th day of the war. And what it says is given in the line 37 there. Te trasanto maheshwasa ratri yuddhasya bharata. Okay, so basically they kind of wind up things and were going towards their camps. Tamasa cha Maharaja Rajasa cha Visheshata. There was a lot of dust in the sky, and that has also affected the visibility. Okay, but they're also saying they took this opportunity and did not fight through the night because basically, based on their past experience of last few days, they were scared of fighting through the night. This is what is stated here. Te trasanto maheshwasa ratri yuddhasya bharata. Okay, and therefore they just went back to their camps. Okay, so amazing what you can find if you read and reread Mahabharata. That's why the Parayan is emphasized. To get all the nuances, the subtleties, the deeper insights, 1 reading, 2 reading, 5 readings, 10 readings, 20 readings are not enough, not sufficient. Let's go to day 17. The first piece of evidence, full moon like moon. Okay, barely a day after the full moon, barely a day or two after the Purnima day. Not a surprise. Just after sunset, give another hour and the sky is going to brighten with a full moon like moon, and those are the descriptions. So here we have Purna Chandra Nibhanane, that is a full moon like moon. Then day 17, that is same day, but second piece of evidence, beautifully lit sky. Again, that's exactly what will happen. After sunset, once the moon rises, maybe just give an hour, maybe hour and a half, and bingo. It's all very bright, beautiful stars, moon, and so on. So that's that description you see. Again, lo and behold, remember what I said? That Vishakha thing, just based on all the rest of the evidence, the position of the moon ought to be near Punarvasu. So why did it say Vishakha? And I gave an explanation. The 4 stars of Punarvasu on the 2 sides of the ecliptic, and how they would look like earrings with a full moon in between, which can be compared with the face of the fallen warrior. But we don't have to take a guess. Just the next day, moon is described between Punarvasus. Okay. Again, the beauty of Vyasadeva, celestial is equal to terrestrial. He is taking the terrestrial incidents of the Mahabharata war and recording them for posterity, that is for us, in a beautiful poetic language with the help of astronomy and non-astronomy upaman. Okay, so that is this second two lines. Ta ubhau dharmarajasya praviro pariparshvata Rathabhashe Chakashete Chandraseva Punarvasu. Okay, the two warriors, okay, Panchala warriors are following and protecting Dharmaraj Yudhishthir from the side. And how does this scene appear? How did this scene appear? With Dharmaraja, imagine him as the moon, okay, protected by Punarvasus on the both sides. Okay, Rathabhashe. His Ratha Chakra protected, his chariot chakra protected by these two warriors. Ratha Bhashe Chakashete Chandraseva Punarvasu. No doubt, we don't have any reason to even guess. Just like 12th day, 12th day, the Kritika was mentioned with the full moon, near full moon like moon. Here, full moon like moon is mentioned near Punarvasu. Okay? And it exactly matches that. 455-61 BC. Day 17, fourth piece of evidence, full moon like moon. How many pieces of evidence do we need before we finally get it? Well, we get it. There are many who don't get it and who don't want to understand it. It is relatively easy to wake up a person who is truly sleeping, but how do you wake up someone who is pretending to be asleep? You cannot do anything. You can just call them out, expose their nonsense, foolishness, and leave it at that, and hope that the intelligent people understand who is doing what and why. Okay, so this one is the 17th day, fourth piece of evidence. Again, Purna Chandropamam Tada, full moon like moon. Day 17, fifth piece of evidence, full moon like moon. Purna Chandra Bhavakram. My God, I'm getting tired of this full moon business. Okay, it did not begin before 10th day, but once it started, it has not stopped, and we are on the 17th day. If you see the picture above, right from that number 25, because that is the 10th day, and now we are on the 17th day, you can, so 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, you can see exactly why the full moon descriptions are coming into Mahabharata text, because that was the situation in the sky. Celestial is equal to terrestrial, and Vyasadeva is making beautiful use of what's up in the sky to describe the scenes on the battlefield. Okay, day 17, sixth piece of evidence, full moon like moon, Purna Chandra Nikashena. Day 17, seventh piece of evidence, full moon like moon. Where is that full moon? There. Parivesho yatha soma paripurno virajate. Okay, paripurno virajate. Of course, even additional description allude to the same thing. Shishubhe, Bharatasreshto, Nakshatrairi, Vachandrama, and so on. Okay. Day 17, eighth piece of evidence. Very nice. See, there was a mention of it, a mathematical point I said for the 13th day of the war. In fact, there was a mention even on the 10th day of the war, for that matter, mention of Rahu. Then, of course, Upapluktam Yatha Somya, right? As if moon was eclipsed on the 13th day of the war. That was there. There was an additional mention of Rahu somewhere, I forgot where. And on the 17th day, again, there is a mention of Rahu. Again, a beautiful analogy. Remember, there was a lunar eclipse on the 15th day of the war. That is over. Now the moon has become free from Rahu. And again, Vyasadeva makes use of this beautiful celestial actual phenomenon occurrence to describe the scene on the terra, the ground, the Mahabharata battlefield. Which is to say, Tathopayatam Yudhi Dharmaraja. Dharmaraj has become freed, from, like, he's been freed by the Pandava army, like Bhima and others, when he was trapped by the Kaurava warriors. And now he has become free, okay? Rahor Vimuktam Vimalam Samagram Chandra. Just like the moon becomes free from the Rahu, similarly Dharmaraja became free from the Kaurava attack, okay? And that's exactly what you're saying. There was a lunar eclipse at the end of the day on the 15th day, and a day after, or plus, now we are saying moon completely free from the effect of Rahu. and that is what is described. Okay. Day 17th, 9 piece of evidence. Now this one I have just taken only to illustrate that whereas I have taken all the evidence to the best of my ability, there could be additional evidence that I might have missed. For the phases and positions of the moon, there is enormous evidence referring to this time as the time of Sharat season. And just to avoid the expansion and the longer podcast, I or whatever these monologues, I have avoided it, but just wanted to give you a glimpse of it. So here on the 17th day, there is a description where the sun during the daytime, the sun is described as the sun of Sharat season. Okay, so therefore I have pointed the arrow towards the sun's position. Okay, day 17th, 10th piece of evidence. Again, full moon like moon. Guys, are you convinced? If not, Mahabharata is not for you. Okay, that or Mahabharata evidence is not for you. Okay, science is not for you, empiricism is not for you, Vijnana Buddhi is not for you, Tarka Shastra is not for you. Okay, because when I go on podcast, see, this kind of evidence is kind of a boring. Actually, it's very useful, but it's boring. I don't discuss this, and I refer to this my other talks, and so there I will say, hey, look, for what I just described, I will just summarize that, and I'm going to summarize it here very soon. But many people have such a poor intellect, they have no ability, they will not do any homework on their own. They have no ability to even understand what is evidence. And they will say, where is the evidence? I did not see any evidence. Okay, this is the person who has not come out of the basic naivety or stupidity or foolishness. Therefore, they don't even understand what is meant by evidence. Okay. Day 17, 10 piece of evidence, again full moon like moon, but few other things. The day ended, 17th day ended with killing of Karna. Okay. Now, Kaurava army, after killing of Karna, was chased by Bhima, by the way. Okay. And eventually Bhima gave up, okay, as the continued into the night. The point is, there was no fighting on the 17th night, although it did occur for some initial portion of it. But what is interesting is that the Kaurava army, now this Karna is also been killed, practically, the defeat is imminent, and Kaurava army with Duryodhana and all the remaining warriors, Shalya and everyone, they decided not to go back to their camps, and they rather chose to stay on the battlefield, and that was not that difficult. They stayed, the Kaurava army, while Pandavas went back to their camps, Kaurava army stayed right on the battlefield. Again, remember, it is a bright night. After sunset, give a few hours, 2-3 hours, and once the moon comes up, it's all bright night. Okay, and that's what they did on the 17th night. Okay, that's how the moon looked like, pretty bright moon there. Again, we have the full moon like moon, that is Purna Chandra Samadhyuti. Okay, now 17th day is over. Kaurava army has stayed on the battlefield. When the morning comes of the 18th day, the fighting continues. Again, we have description of full moon on the 18th day of the war. Again, that Purna Chandra Samaprabha should not be a surprise. Look at the moon. Okay. Then another piece of evidence, full moon like moon, Purna Chandra Miva Vyomni. Okay. It began on the 10th day, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and the full moon extravaganza continues. Okay. 18th, third piece of evidence. Moon and Saturn close like Shalya and Yudhishthir fighting against each other. This is again another decisive piece of evidence. Okay. In fact, when I did my first work, which is when did the Mahabharata war happen, I had missed this reference. Even when I wrote the Bhishma Nirvan in 2018, I had missed this reference. And later on, sometime, I forgot when, maybe around the COVID times or just before that, my friend Sai Swarupa Iyer, she was going through the 18 days of the war details in a meticulous fashion, and I requested to her if she would keep an eye and point out any astronomy related references if she comes across, and send it my way. And she was so kind, she did actually many others, like 5 6 references, and they all match for 5561 BC, but they are very generic type of references. But this one is a very specific, like what we call samanya versus vishesh. This is a vishesha type of reference, as the language used in a darshana shastra, where there is a very beautiful description of the 18th day of the war, when Shalya and Yudhishthira are fighting. Again, the terrestrial scene of the Mahabharata battlefield. Vyasadeva compares it, okay, and embeds it in the Mahabharata text with the help of the situation up in the sky. Celestial is equal to terrestrial. And how does he do it? He says, Vyadrushata tada Shalyo Yudhishthira samipataha Rane Chandramaso Bhashe Shaneshchara Iva Graha. Just like moon and the Saturn are up in the sky fighting, something like this, the fighting between Shalya and Yudhishthir appeared like that, for example. And what do we have? The position of the Saturn. Okay, now we are not discussing planetary evidence, but the only position for Saturn that is possible based on the 6 plus descriptions of, not 6 plus, 6 descriptions of Saturn in the Mahabharata text is between Uttara, Falguni and Chitra, period, no ifs, no buts. So if somebody claims the position of Saturn at the time of Mahabharata war anywhere in the Nakshatra Mandal, but except Uttara, Falguni, Hasta, Chitra, you can take it as an assurance that that person's claim is wrong. Based on the 6 pieces of Shani evidence, Saturn evidence from the Mahabharata text, the only place the Saturn can be, and that will satisfy all the 6 shloka, is between Uttara Falguni, which is number 8 here in the Nakshatra system, number 9 Hasta, and number 10 Chitra. Now, notice here on this day, the moon and Saturn are close to each other. Now, again, if you don't understand Astronomy 101, you have no physical feeling for how the stars are seen in the sky, then you say, oh, well, are they close? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like a 5, 4, 4 nakshatra in between? Yes, they are close, because everything is in the context. Now, because I have shown you all the phases of the moon that may confuse you, so just to remove that confusion, only to assist you, I am creating this another scene. Forget the moons for a minute, like the multiple phases through the first day of the war for the 18th days of the war. Just focus on the 18th day of the war, the position of the moon and the position of Saturn. Now what do you see? Indeed, they are close to each other, but something else. Where I have drawn this softer arrow on the right side, that is the region. So think of this as between Purvashadha through Rohini is where all the other planets other than Saturn have lined up. No other planet, not even Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, can be seen where the big arrow is not there. So entire sky, the 18th day of the war, or you can say 17th night of the war, whichever way you want to take it, the entire night, okay, the 2 planets, so to say, that could be seen into the sky until the sunrise were simply Saturn and Moon. That's how precise, accurate, impeccable, amazing, mysterious evidence of Mahabharata text is. Okay, this decisively falsifies any other claim for the year of Mahabharata war, just this piece of evidence. Okay, all right, day 19. Now what happened? 18th day, Duryodhana is killed, but he's kind of almost ready to die, but not dead yet. He's lying down there. He calls Krupacharya and Ashwathama, and makes Ashwathama the new general, because Shalya has died, right? Duryodhana has lost to Bhima, and Ashwathama, this is a Sautik Parva, Ashwathama goes and attacks the Pandava camp, kills many, including 5 sons of Draupadi. That is that Sautik Parva. And the next day, in the morning portion, Bhim and Arjun go chase Ashwathama. They punish him. I will not go into that story. I have said that story many other times, but people can read it. And towards the end of that day, finally the Kuru woman, they run to the battlefield in search of their loved ones, the husbands and brothers and fathers and sons and so on and so forth. Okay, so this is the description on the 19th day of the war, you can say evening or so on. Full moon like moon again. Okay, so that this is how the moon looked like. And the full moon that you see, the illumination on the 19th day of the war is comparable to the 10th day of the war. The very first time you saw the appearance of the full moon, that is the 10th day of the war, and very last time, of course the war is over now, but very last time as far as the war context is concerned, you are seeing the full moon description is on the 19th day. And both of them have a comparable illumination, more than 70-75%. Okay, and that's why they are considered like a full moon. So this is the first reference, and again there is an additional reference of full moon like moon. Again here, where is it? Yeah, Purna Chandra Sudarshanam, or the previous one was Somasya Vabhi Purnasya Paurnamasyam Samudyata. Now if somebody foolishly thinks therefore this day was a Purnima, only he or she has to blame himself or herself. It is a full moon like moon, has to do with the illumination, and that has a big significance for actually dividing the month into Shukla Paksha and Krishna Paksha in a way that we have not seen or we have not imagined. Just to complete that story, suppose imagine now this is after like a 15th day, the Vadya Paksha has begun, the the moon's illumination is going down. So if you continue beyond 5th there, point number 5th nakshatra, that is Ashlesha, you go to Magha, and then Purva Falguni, Uttara Falguni, Hasta, Chitra, Swati, Vishaka, Anuradha, Jeshta, Mula, and come towards the next Amavasya. What are you going to see? You are going to see moon less and less illuminated with the phases that appropriate the Krishna Paksha. Okay, a crescent moon, but reversed than what you saw here. And eventually reaching of Amavasya. So if you complete this circle, what will you see? If you draw a horizontal line through the heart of this egg-shaped nakshatra mandal, the bottom portion you will see actually as a Krishna Paksha, the dark half, and the top portion you will see that as the Shukla Paksha, the bright half. Just keep that in mind. Actually, there are some interesting discussions, not in the Mahabharata, but in the context of Mahabharata, by the likes of Bharatacharya Pavakane into his History of Dharma Shastra, Volume 3. Go and read them. Okay, how a Krishna Paksha in a certain context can be considered as a Shukla Paksha. Go figure. Okay, why? Because post Purnima, imagine like the next how many days I should say, next 5 6 days 7 days or 6 days, before 6 days, after 6 days, something like this, total of like a 14 days or so. Essentially that is the bright half, that can be considered by one definition as a Shukla Paksha, because that's when the nights are the brightest. And if you take the bottom half, that is the plus minus 6 surrounding Amavasya, that is the Krishna half. This is another way of classifying the month, or not classifying, dividing the month into two halves. And we already we know the Shukla Paksha or Shuddha Paksha and Vadya Paksha that we describe. Okay, this is a food for thought, lot of new research. This is actually a great research project for people to go and see, do we have references to Shukla Paksha as referring to beginning with say Shukla Ashtami, what we call Shukla Ashtami or Shuddha Ashtami today, going until Vadya Saptami or so, and then beginning with a Vadya Ashtami and going through the Amavasya and all the way to the Shuddha Saptami or so as the Krishna Paksha. Okay, this will be a very interesting research project. People ask me, what can I study? What can I research on? Here is one. Where are the takers, guys? Okay, let's move on. So day 19, the second one is also that Purna Chandra Sudarshanam. Okay, we are done. Okay, so actually the war in some sense did continue into the next day after 18th. The whole night Ashwatthama attacked, and then Bhim and Arjun had to humble him on the next day, and then the Kuru ladies ran to the battlefield in search of their beloved ones, the fathers, brothers, husbands, sons, etc. Okay, on the 19th day. And then there was the Preta Kriya Karma, Agni Karma, Jala Karma, and so on. But we'll stop here. If you are outside India, Amazon is a place to go get these books. Okay, all this stuff, guys, I'm discussing is maybe not in that much detail. Therefore, these videos act as a supporting one, corroborative, purak, to the books, because books has limitation of pages and how much can be written. Okay, and so definitely pick the when did the Mahabharata war happen and Bhishma Nirvana for Mahabharata and the historic Rama for Ramayan. If you are in India, the best bet is through Subbu publications. Okay, usually great deals there, so go grab these three books. As I said, the books have been translated and are being translated in other languages. uh, don't ask the question, is it translated in this language? If it's not here, it is not there. When it does get translated, it will show up here. Okay, so two of the books right now translated in Marathi, one of them in Kannada. The third Marathi book is first draft is ready, it's going through processing, and it will be ready sometime. Don't ask me when it is there, I will let you know. You can be curious and find out through Param Mitra publications and so on. This is the other book, Prachin Bharatiya Khagol Vigyan. It is in Marathi. It is being translated in Hindi and English. Don't ask me when. When it comes out, I'll let you know. But enough reason to learn Marathi. Go grab it. A very small book, few essays. You will love it. All right. Quickly summary. First day was that of the Kartik Amavasya, while 14-15 days that of the Margashrisha Purnima. No moon descriptions during the first 7 days of the war. Full moon descriptions 10 through 19 days of the war. Fighting stopped at sunset during the first 5 days of the war, and then fighting through the night with increasing duration until the day of Purnima. Of course, there were exceptions, such as, for example, the 10th day when Bhishma fell down, the 15th day when Drona fell down, the 13th day when Abhimanyu fell down. Okay, we don't have a clear description for the 11th day. I encourage people to go read it and see if they can find some interesting references, whether the fighting continued through the night on 11th day, and if it did not, why not, if there is any explanation given. I mentioned that because for 16th day, 14th day it went throughout the night, 15th day it did not because Drona was killed. 16th day actually it was going to go through, but the warriors were so scared they did not do it, and that scare factor can explain why they did not fight on the 17th day, 17th night I mean. But Kaurava army actually camped right on the battlefield, because again it was a very bright moon night. Okay, and last one, allusions to solar eclipse occur on the first day of the war. We saw that, and a lunar eclipse through eclipse 10 through 15 days of the war. Remember, there was a reference to Rahu and a full moon on the 10th day, a reference to Upaplutam Yatha Somam, as if moon was eclipsed, because the position of Rahu was right there on the 13th day. And of course, we see the reference again on the 15th day, but also on the 17th day when Vyasadev describes Yudhishthir freed from the Kaurava warriors, like the moon becoming free from Rahu. How beautiful. Okay, and that's it, guys. Okay, so write your comments. What do you think of it? This is part 2, so do watch part 1 for a complete comprehensive understanding of the moon, the sun, and comet reference evidence for through the 18 days of the war. I will see you soon in another episode. Thank you. Namaskar. Jai Sri Ram.